Hello, everybody, and welcome to a interesting Lost Caverns of Ixalan draft. You may notice, hands-free, the game is hitting ready. The thing is, I recorded this draft, but my microphone wasn't turned on. But because I enjoyed it so much, and I focused so much, and there was so much to learn from it, I wanted to make sure I brought it to you. So we're going to be doing this and taking advantage of this unique opportunity. And if you enjoy this type of video, maybe I'll try to make more like it in the future. But what we're going to be doing is normally I'm constrained by the time limit. So I have to wait for the person to pass me the pack to make the pick. But if there's a pretty straightforward pick, I'll fast forward through it. So it's easier. I'll talk about the main cards. In this first pack, Bedrock Tortoise is just much better than any common or uncommon, I think. And so it's a very easy pack one, pick one while I explain the premise of this. So basically, we're going through the draft, we're going through the games, but if there's something that's just like skippable, we can just skip through it. We don't have to wait, and hopefully that'll almost simulate as if I was like quickly editing stuff. But this is an easy Bedrock Tortoise, and I'm just basically saying that I think Rampaging Ceratops might be my second pick out of that pack. Just really good evasive threat. And here you see there's not really a good green follow-up to the Bedrock Tortoise. One of the things that made this draft interesting was having to figure out which colors were maybe a bit open. Visage of Dread was a card that I did consider. It is a little bit worse than Deadweight, though, I think, because Visage of Dread takes a card from their hand. Deadweight takes a card that they've already spent mana on and helps you like catch up if you fall behind. Green-black also cares about descending, and Deadweight puts itself in your graveyard for that. And as you'll see in this draft, I like go back and tweak my deck a lot, and Deadweight was a card that I never even considered cutting because the card just ends up performing super well. Here, I think the main pick is basically just Deadweight. I don't think Visage of Dread is as good, and I think none of the other colors have a card that's even remotely comparable to the black cards. Like if I wasn't taking Deadweight, I probably would take like Visage of Dread, but I think Sunfire Torch might also be a consideration if I was going a little bit more aggressive. Though funnily enough, Sunfire Torch doesn't actually buff Bedrock Tortoise. Just kind of a fun thing to keep in mind. So now I have a black card and a green card, and I get a pick 3, which is actually a really interesting pick and kind of a pick that defines the draft in some ways. I know it's kind of funny because I have the benefit of hindsight, and I'm not really trying to spoil anything. But as you can see, Armored Kincaller it's not like a card worth third picking. But up in that little rare slot, I'm going to be highlighting it in a moment. Queensbay Paladin is really good if you enable it. It's a 5-mana 5/4 that brings back a creature. Like you can bring back like really anything. You can bring back multiple creatures if you have a lot of vampires. And there are some pretty solid vampires in this set. And basically what it boils down to is I think Market Gnome's a good card, and I think Queensbay Paladin is a good card. But I think Queensbay Paladin fits into like a black-white deck. And so even though I don't have any white cards, Queensbay Paladin is like, oh, I might want to play black-white to go with that. And so it's more like, if I'm going to take Market Gnome, I might as well take a card that's going to be better in a black-white deck because I can already play that with my Deadweight. Like that was the general idea. And I can also just play like green-black and have a couple of vampires in that deck. So play all of the cards that I've taken. So I think I was pretty happy with Queensbay Paladin here as a third pick. Pick 4, really easy pick, honestly. There's Join the Dead. It goes with my 2 other black cards, and there's really nothing else to consider aside from that Poison Dart Frog that you see in the lower left corner. Join the Dead, just great removal spell. There's 3 black cards still in the pack, all of them pretty solid, and so I think black is a pretty good spot to be. Join the Dead's a good spot to be. At this point, I'm thinking, I could play black-white to go with Queensbay Paladin. I could just play black-green to go with my Bedrock Tortoise. Poison Dart Frog, sad to pass, but this is a pretty easy pick. And I think I just get to skip to the next one here. Okay, we have the Join the Dead now. We took that over the Poison Dart Frog. And here, there's a few black cards, and there's a lot of blue cards. So there's a Grasping Shadows here. There's 3 blue cards, and 4 blue cards, actually, if you include the Cogwork Wrestler. And there's 3 black cards. So this entire pack is basically black-blue. I'm like, okay, maybe I just abandon the Bedrock Tortoise, go towards blue a little bit. I'm not super interested in any of these black cards, but the fact that there is a quantity of them is like a little bit of telltale sign maybe that like nobody's taking like black cards out of this pack. I think River Herald Scout is the best of these blue cards because it's just pretty like just reasonable card. 2 mana, get a little bit of value. I really like it, and I think it just gives you something kind of almost, if you get land off it like filters your draws, and just a nice little 2-drop. Here, there's a Fanatical Offering. It's funny because Fanatical Offering is the sort of card that is like really interesting to me because like in my head, it's like really good. You just like play Fanatical Offering, play multiples of them, sack the map that you get. But I've actually found difficulty fitting it into decks sometimes. Here, I like taking it to maybe go with my like other black cards. There is also a River Herald Guide here though, which I am strongly considering here to just like maybe try to get a little bit more into green to go with my Bedrock Tortoise. I think this is the sort of thing where it's like being heavy in one color gives you so much flexibility going forward that it's like worth taking a card, even if it moves you away from like a Bedrock Tortoise, which is a very good card. And now we see a pack that doesn't really have any black cards. The only green card is Into the Presence of Ages. And here is where I make another pick that I'm pretty happy with, where I take this Attentive Sunscribe, because as I was noting when I had the Queensbay Paladin, as I think that card is at its best in white-black, where you have the highest density of vampires, it can fit into any black deck because there are vampires that are just in black. But I take the Sunscribe here because I feel like if I'm going to have my little my hands in little directions here, I have a little bit of blue. My best card in a non-black color is obviously the Bedrock Tortoise, so black-green is still the front runner. But if I did want to diversify into black-white, then Attentive Sunscribe is a good card to help me do that. Now we see another pack that's basically all Sultai colors, and Vito's Inquisitor is a card that I really, really like because it goes with Queensbay Paladin. But it's also pack 1, and I feel like I don't really need too many of those to go with the Queensbay Paladin, and River Herald Guide is a card that, at least at this point, I really like. It's a sort of card that I in theory, it seems good to me, but I'm not sure how good it actually ends up being just because the stat line isn't always the best. If it was a 3-1 that always drew you a land, that would be pretty good. But a 3-mana Forge is just kind of a bad card. And so there's a huge delta in how powerful the card is, I feel like, which I don't necessarily always need in my deck. Here I took the River Herald Guide, though, to just maybe get that Bedrock Tortoise a little bit better. And now I take the Primordial Gnar. It's just a nice, solid black card. And it's just one that you're almost always like relatively happy to play. It trades off, gets you some value. 5/2 trades with a lot of big creatures. You're even happy trading it down on mana a little bit, like trading it for a 4-drop or even sometimes a 3-drop, because you get something out of it and you get the mana rebate right away. Now I get another Fanatical Offering. These red cards just aren't particularly good. I mean, this whole pack is pretty much unplayable outside of the Hotfoot Gnome, which is sometimes playable, but pretty weak pack, honestly. Getting a playable card out of it's nice. Now I get a Hidden Necropolis for free. It's really nice when you can get these caves without having to invest a real pick in them. It's just really beneficial, I think. And then I wheeled Poison Dart Frog, and I'm like, okay, I'm playing black-green, because if I'm going to wheel a Poison Dart Frog, then like what else am I going to wheel over the course of the draft? That's one of the things in draft is if you're, and I'm wheeling all the black cards too, but if you're wheeling really good cards, it's like the entire table had the option to take Poison Dart Frog, and I almost took it the time I saw it. As you can see, I'm shifting the any of the cards in other colors to my sideboard, because wheeling a Poison Dart Frog is such a big signal. Because it's like, what are they taking over it? Like, nobody wanted a Poison Dart Frog. I literally almost took it. Like, if I hadn't been Join the Dead in that pack, I probably would have taken it there. And I opened Tarian's Journal. So you can see my deck is starting to be defined, partially by finding the open colors, because black was a color I was going to be playing. I got the third pick Queensbay Paladin. I have the Bedrock Tortoise that I opened as well. And I also wheeled the Poison Dart Frog. So I've kind of got open colors, and I'm opened a couple rares that are in my colors. And Tarian's Journal, if you don't know what it does, it basically lets you, it's like a sacrifice. You can like sacrifice things to draw cards early game, but in the late game, you can pay 2 mana, discard your entire hand, and then start recasting creatures out of your graveyard with it. So it just gives you the sort of inevitability that you want in your black-green deck, because the thing about black-green is it can grind a lot of the time. But if you don't have a way to go over the top, there are some other decks that can also grind, like blue-white grinds very well. And you want to have that kind of like, okay, I'm content to grind and wait for the late game because I know I can win. So I take the Tarian's Journal, pick 2. I'm really happy to see the Vito's Inquisitor because I do want it, and but I don't want to prioritize it. Like, this is the sort of card that I think I can wheel. I saw one late in the last pack, and so I get to take a Marionette, which helps me fill my graveyard, which plays well with a lot of black-green cards, and then I get to get the Vito's Inquisitor hopefully on the wheel. Though this pack is pretty empty for me, I definitely do take the Deathcap Marionette. Here we see another pack, and I really like this Echo of Dusk pick, because Echo of Dusk is a vampire to go with Queensbay Paladin, and I'm filling my graveyard, and I might even wheel the Vito's Inquisitor out of this pack as well. And so I just get another vampire, and that's another easy pick. The Soul Coil Serpent I just don't think is hugely useful. I think it would have been okay if I didn't have the Queensbay Paladin synergy, but like sacrificing your 3-drop to get a bigger drop isn't like that huge of an advantage. You have to pay 4 mana, and you're usually getting like maybe something more expensive, but that's in the late game when you could cast the more expensive card anyway. Here I just pick Mephitic Draft. I already have 2 Fanatical Offerings. I don't love Canonized in Blood, and so I think Mephitic Draft is pretty easy. I already have that, and I'm hoping to wheel those 2 4-drops, the vampires, that can also sacrifice things. So I think Mephitic Draft is a pretty reasonable playable here. And now I just don't really have a card to take here. In some other formats, I would just take Promising Vein as like a way to like potentially enable a splash, but I don't really want to splash in this deck. My deck is just like heavy black, mostly like black-green. I don't really need to splash. And I took Explorer's Cache here because I figure I could put the counters on something and then sacrifice the Explorer's Cache. It's a card that I really want to try because I think it has some potential, but I also think it fits more in aggressive decks, similar to Canonized in Blood, where you kind of want those cards when you're beating down, when you're pressuring your opponent. And Explorer's Cache is not the sort of card that I really felt like I needed here in my final build, because it just doesn't fit my strategy. This was a really good pack for me. There's just so many cards that I like. My goodness. What did I even take here? Like, I don't even think I registered that there was a Poison Dart Frog in this pack. That's how good this pack was. Like, I'm looking at this pack, and I don't even remember seeing a Poison Dart Frog. What did I even take here? I mean, I know what my final build was, and man, I feel like I take Fanatical Offering here, and the logic probably was that it plays well in multiples. I took another Death Cap. No, I took a River Herald Guide here. Wait. Okay, I took River Herald Guide here. I regret that pick. I think I should have taken Poison Dart Frog 100%. That card is fantastic. And after playing more games with this deck, Poison Dart Frog was a card I was always happy to see in my opening hand. And spoiler alert, but I don't end up playing River Herald Guides after like a game. I definitely play black-green here. Not really a huge spoiler because I've got like tons of great black-green cards and both colors are open. So I guess this is a cool thing that I can do in retrospect is talk about how I started building this deck, because as I was playing the games, I started like changing the way I was building the deck. Here, I'm really glad I took the Hidden Necropolis. I already have plenty of 3-drops. And yeah, I'm in really good shape here. I get a Hidden Necropolis over a River Herald Guide. The thing with, yeah, I just wasn't really... My deck ends up with so many playables that I didn't really need the River Herald Guide. It's like a place drop holder. And yeah, I wish I had another Poison Dart Frog. That card was great. And I just ended up with these 3 caves, just made it so like, if you have 3 caves, you're almost always going to have one by the mid game. Because like you have 17 lands. By the time you have like 7 lands in play, you've seen like enough lands that you're probably going to have a cave. And that just gives you so much extra gas in the tank. You never run out. Grasping Shadows was a card that I wasn't sure how good it was. But I think the rest of this pack is pretty straightforward. Like I take the cave. Wait, what did I take in this next pack? Yeah, I took the 6-drop here. It's like just winding down. I just get like the only card for my colors in these last few packs. Pick 11. I think I get the Minecraft Spider. Yeah. These are just a bunch of cards that I don't think I really played. Yeah, I didn't play the Sunbirds thing. And now we get to pack 3. Minor spoiler there. I wheeled Malicious Eclipse. I'm just wheeling everything. I took the Fanatical Offering. But I just get to the end of this pack and my deck is like, I already have enough playables already, which is pretty great. Like I've got 12 creatures, I've got plenty of self-mill, and then I open the Myco Tyrant, which is just like, oh, I opened a black-green mythic. It's funny because Myco Tyrant is the sort of card where you have to put some work in. And I realized this over the course of the games. You can't just like play this and like have it be good, because having to send trigger on your turn requires a little bit of extra effort. And this pack is actually just straight up stacked for black-green. It's got a Deep Cavern Bat. It's got a Tendril of the Myco Tyrant. It also has a Deadweight. All 3 of those cards are just really good. And I would have been relatively happy first picking any of them. There's also a Primordial Gnar. And I mean, I made sure to shout out Master's Guide Mural because that card's great. But Myco Tyrant is a card that I really did want to try. And it did lead to some of the cooler plays that I've made in this format. Okay, now this pack is actually pretty easy. There's a Thrashing Brontodon. Thrashing Brontodon's fantastic. Gives you a main deck, like a card you can play in best of 1 that deals with artifacts and enchantments, which is huge. It also triggers Descend sometimes. That was just an easy pick. Pack 3, same thing. Another Thrashing Brontodon. And this is the start. This is one of the reasons why, as I said, I ended up cutting the River Herald Guides, was because I had these great 3-drops already. And my curve just got cluttered there. I saw another Vito's Inquisitor. I only have 1 of them at the moment, and I really did want to get a second one. Just to give myself like 3 vampires, I feel like would be a good sweet spot for Queensbay Paladin to make sure I like almost always had one. Obviously, having multiple Echoes of Dusk would be good as well. But even just getting Vito's Inquisitor as the 4-drop slot is pretty okay. I ended up cutting the Screaming Phantasm there. That card ends up making it back into my deck because, as I was talking about with the Myco Tyrant, having consistent ways to like trigger it is important. So if you go like turn 3 Screaming Phantasm, turn 4 play Myco Tyrant, you can start attacking, getting some stuff. This was another key pick, taking Ray of Ruin. I only had Join the Dead as like unconditional removal at this point. And so getting another like spell that can kill anything, just answer problematic permanents, was really important for this sort of deck. So I just look at my options. There aren't really options though. It's just mostly Ray of Ruin. This deck at this point, I wasn't sure how I was going to build it. I had all these sacrifice outlets with Fanatical Offerings. So I was like, oh, I can do that plan. I can lean more towards like the self mill. I can just like play like grindy late game battles. But I felt pretty good about where my deck was at. I have like 27 cards in the pool right now and 3 lands. So I'm just, every card I add at this point is just accompanied by further cuts. Big 5. What did I take? I think oh yeah, I got a Pathfinding Axe Draw out of a pretty empty pack. Like I already have copies of all these cards. I didn't really feel like I needed more 2-drops, so I just took an Axe Draw. And then I just get to skip through. This is beautiful. Next pack. Oh, this was a really good pick for me. I get the Snail. Snail's really good because Snail gives me a 2-drop that I can sacrifice to my sack synergies without having to worry about any, like, I don't have to worry about it triggers Descend. I don't have to worry about like sacking a real creature because the Snail already got some value. Here's another great pick. I get another chance. It really does a lot of work. I'm really happy I had this card. Having some self-mill is just really valuable attached to this effect that like gets you 2 really good creatures back. It helps fill your graveyard. It helps get you back like key threats. I was considering getting the Inquisitor there, but I was counting on wheeling one of the Veto's Inquisitors I saw earlier. This is just an empty pack. I don't get to use any of these cards. And then what did I wheel for pick 9? Pick 8. Pick 9. What did I get? Oh, I wheeled Deadweight out of that opening pack that I opened. So that was a really good pick. I didn't even take much time to think about it. Deadweight was fantastic. I get to just skip through. Oh my gosh. The next few picks just go really quickly. I took a Nurturing Bristleback, another card that actually was really good for me because it gave me like a late game threat that was also fine early and can trigger Descend. And then I got the wheeled Veto's Inquisitor, which I was actually really happy about because I did want 3 vampires to go with Queensbay Paladin. Queensbay Paladin is just really good. Like, it's so much extra mana. I wheeled just like random black cards. I did not want to play the Abyssal Gorestalker though. That card is not really what my deck was trying to do. I wasn't really that tokeny strategy. I took the Fungal Fortitude. I might have even been better taking the Screaming Phantasm, but I already had a Phantasm in my board at this point that I wasn't playing. I forgot that I had the option to take another one of those 3-drop flyers. Maybe it would have been better. Then I just like round out the draft. And the interesting thing about this is I get to my build. I take a long time with this build. Like, if you look at the timer in the corner, I took 5 minutes building my deck. I'm just going to show you the final version that I came up with, and then I'll talk about some of the decisions that went into that. Okay. So let's just go here. So my final deck. I'll give myself a minute on the clock here to talk about my final build. And that way I don't have to worry about this little orange bar in the way. So my final build that I settled on, this first build was a rough draft, but I refined it over the course of the games. But basically the general idea was I was going to play my early game cards, like my Myco Tyrants, my Thrashing Brontodons, my Deadweights, get to the mid game, maybe have a flipped Tarian's Journal, maybe play a Queensbay Paladin to get way ahead on mana, and then I was going to win the late game. And the flaws with this deck, there weren't a lot. I stuck pretty close to this deck. I didn't end up playing a single Fanatical Offering in this main deck build, and I played some cards that I think were a little bit weaker. Basically, Veto's Inquisitor is not my favorite card. It's a card that I'm playing because I have Queensbay Paladin, but I think it's a solid card. The Primordial Gnawer isn't currently in the deck. That card ended up being really, really good when I tried it out, so I definitely was happy I included it. But basically, I cut the River Herald guides, and I cut the Mineshaft Spider. And so basically, I just cut a couple of cards in the middle of my curve, which doesn't fundamentally change the strategy. Let's just go back here. I needed more than a minute to talk through my deck building choices. Yeah, it doesn't fundamentally change the strategy, but I added the Primordial Gnawer over the Mineshaft Spider, and then I added one Fanatical Offering over a River Herald guide, and I added the Screaming Phantom as well over the River Herald guide, just because I felt like they fit into my deck nicely. Like, I had a decent amount of things to sacrifice. I had the Mythic Draft to sacrifice the Fanatical Offering, and I also had the Primordial Gnawer was just a card I wanted to try, and Primordial Gnawer was fantastic. Like, as you'll see in the games, that card is one that I'm always happy to draw. It's funny because I feel like the draft portion stays relatively constant when I record afterwards, but the games are where I really get to skip through some stuff that's just like really boring or whatever's happening. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a post-op thing, and I will see you folks in the games where hopefully you'll get to see some awesome stuff. Before I get to the games, I want to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons who support my content at patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. If you have been enjoying my videos, if they've been helping you find more success in your draft and have more fun playing Magic, and you would like to show your support, then you can do so via Patreon. It is essentially a way to tip my channel, but it also comes with some cool rewards like access to my card by card tier list for Lost Caverns of Ixalan and other cool things like that. I want to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons who support at the credits level. And if you're interested in learning more, you can of course find that at patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. Without further ado though, let's get to the games. Okay, here we go. So this was an easy keep. I have dead weight, I have a 3-drop. I can cycle my guy or use it. This is the first time I really see the Myco Tyrant in action though. I draw the Myco Tyrant, I'm like, okay, we'll get to see how it does. They play Malamet Brawler, pretty straightforward, kill it, continue going forward, marching on, progress, as they say. Progress marches on. But yeah, so basically just killing their guy, moving on. Red-green, this was an interesting match, and watching it back is going to be also an interesting game, I shall say. Watching it back is going to be an intriguing one for me. So basically, I decide that I want to lead with Myco Tyrant because then if I explore a creature into the graveyard, I can get it going with River Herald Guide. And even though I don't have tons of sack outlets, I had enough that I was like, okay, the extra token could matter, making my Myco Tyrant bigger. I can also make it bigger by just discarding the Nurturing Bristleback. Opponent plays an Axe Draw, and now I'm like, oh, my River Herald Guide actually trades with this pretty well, no matter how it lines up. I draw Queensbay Paladin. Reasonable draw. Just everything kind of going straightforward here. I hit a land, so I have enough lands to immediately play this Bristleback at some point. And I feel like I screwed this game up at some point, and I'm just trying to figure out where. They're splashing a color, as they saw by hitting the Black Cave. They play Diamond Pickaxe, and then they equip. And I'm like, okay, what's my answer for dealing with a 5/4 here? They just attack me. I probably should have just taken this and then just hit them back, but I was like, okay, I can trade this off. I have ways to get this back later. My Myco Tyrant isn't really at any threat of getting better here. But that was already I 2-for-1 myself, which was probably unnecessary. I could have just played Queensbay Paladin and traded. They play Zoyoa Lava Tongue, and then I just take 3 damage. Okay, so I kind of already messed that thing up. I draw Join the Dead, and I'm like, okay, I don't really want to trade my 5/4 for their 2/2, but like, that one block really screwed me, because if I played my 5/4, now my 5/4 can trade with their 5/4. And here I just killed their guy because I was like, okay, the Death Touch is going to trade with my 5/5 anyway, so it's like, by killing their guy, I save my 5/5. But what actually happens is they play a 4/5, and I really screwed this game up. It's really interesting, though, because at the time, I was really happy because I didn't really panic. I didn't freak out. I didn't go like, sometimes when I mess something up, I get really depressed, but I was proud of myself for not doing that in this time. Unfortunately, my incredible mental toughness isn't on display because obviously I'm watching this post-op with all of you, but it's cool to be able to see the kind of like, okay, they make a 5/6 now, and now my 5/4 can't trade with their guy. But if I'd had my 3-mana deal 5, I would have been in actually good shape because my 5/4 would have lined up against their 5/4, trade there. My 3/1 would have been able to trade with their 2/2. I would have had my guy still, and I would have been in good shape here. But as it is, I play this guy, try to set up for a double block. But unfortunately, they have a kill spell. And this game just spirals out of control from here. They just kill my guy, and I was like, okay, this is a nightmare. I felt like I had to jump block because I have no real answers. Since I have one more removal spell that can actually kill the Panicked Altasaur, I don't really have life gain in my deck other than the 2-mana, like 3/3 lifelinker. And basically, I was like, oh, I'm in real trouble here, especially when they played Cavern Stomper. I didn't concede though either. I fought to the bitter end. I did not concede, but yeah, this is where I reflect on my errors on how I could have killed the Altasaur. I might have lost the Cavern Stomper anyway. It would have been a challenge, especially because Bedrock Tortoise can't block Cavern Stomper if they activate it. I do draw Echo of Dusk. I'm like, okay, I might actually be in this because I can like make a trade or some blocks and then bring it back with Queensbay Paladin. Playing all my lands, of course, because when you have a cave, you want to just make sure you have as much mana in play as possible. Opponent just pretty much all they have to do is attack me almost, and I'm dead. But they, I believe they just, like, yeah, I think they just kill my Bedrock Tortoise here. Yeah, it's not good. I have to chump block, and as you can see, this game is pretty much over. Though I do continue fighting it out because I do have outs. They're small outs, but like if I draw another removal spell to kill their Panicked Altasaur, and they draw nothing the rest of the game. But I draw that. I only get to play one spell this turn. And I'm just going to fast forward through this game because it's over. They kill my guy and I lose. That's what happens. This game was interesting, but it did spark some wheels, some cogs that were going to be going. So this is where I started making changes to the deck. So I cut the Mineshaft Spider because after drawing it, I just realized it was kind of underpowered. I cut the Draft because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be playing the sacrifice stuff. And I cut, what was the third card I cut from here? And I had cut the Myco Tyrant. The reason I cut the Myco Tyrant was it was just like, okay, I identified the cards that I drew that game that felt weak. And Myco Tyrant felt weak, and the Minecraft Spider felt weak, and the Draft was like another card that was like, okay, these three cards didn't really do anything. And so then I was like, okay, what can I do to like make my deck more functional with these cards? And this is where I was like, okay, in order for Myco Tyrant to function, which just seems like a very powerful card if you can enable it, I think I'm going to need some more actual self-mill. And I think that's where I started like, okay, I can bring in the Phantom. I was like, Mephitic Draft, I'll bring in Fanatical Offering. We can play it like this. I don't really need the self-mill. I don't think I guess I didn't bring in the Screaming Phantom yet. But I'm still like just putting a lot of thought into like, how can I trigger the Myco Tyrant reliably? I was like, okay, Screaming Phantom, I have an option. I can bring that guy in, and I'll just cut a River Herald Guide because that card is fine, but it's not going to trigger and make any of those extra 1/1s. And then I just bring in the Primordial Gnar. And I'm actually pretty happy because it looks like my second blush attempt on this deck is the version that I was way happier with. I cut 3 cards that like kind of like the River Herald Guide and Mineshaft Spider. The River Herald Guide in particular, I don't think is a terrible card, but I think that the cards that I added fit my deck better. Primordial Gnar is like a very grindy, getting you some like a real like spell out of it when it dies. And then this was like me just debating Explorer's Cache because I don't think I can use that card because my deck isn't that aggressive. My deck is more like grind you out, but have like some good solid cards at all points on the curve. But yeah, this is where I'm like, oh, yeah, everything's going pretty well. My curve is looking a lot better, and I get to just go into the next game. This was an easy keep. I have a turn 1. I have like early deadweight, though it is awkward. I'm just going to rewind so you can see my opening hand here. Yeah. So I have a deadweight. I have a Fanatical Offering. Don't worry, the bottom bar will disappear. I have a deadweight, of a Fanatical Offering. Fanatical Offering, it was interesting because when I drew in my opening hand, I was like, this card's kind of awkward here. Do I want cards that are awkward in my opening hand? But as you'll maybe see over the course of the games, having cards that are awkward in your opening hand doesn't mean they're not worth playing because they can be good later on. So I'm like, okay, I need to draw a land with this hand, but I get the land right off the bat. I'm like, okay, this is pretty okay. And they play a Cogwork Wrestler for no value. And I'm like, okay, this could be an aggressive matchup. And on this turn, I'm like, okay, I've taken some damage. They play a River Herald Scout, explore, hit a Brackish Blunder, which is like a real tempo play against some of my spells. And I'm like, okay, what do I do here? I don't have a play on turn 3 unless I deadweight their 1/2. And I was like, do I pass the turn here? Because if I don't deadweight the Cogwork Wrestler, they can like bounce my first blocker I play, keep hitting me. And the Cogwork Wrestler could potentially account for like maybe 3 points of damage. And when I have all these powerful spells in my hand and they have like a tempo card that's pure tempo like Brackish Blunder, I decided that killing their Cogwork Wrestler was worth it and making sure I at least spend my mana. The other tiebreaker was that I have stuff to do with my mana for the next like 5 turns. Like I have 4 drops and 5 drops in my hand, so I'm not gonna be able to like double spell with the deadweight. And here I was really happy because I got to play Bedrock Tortoise and they can't bounce it on my end step because it's got hexproof on my turn. So that was like really, really good for me. It really lined up well. Now, they still make a play, but them playing another Cogwork Wrestler is like, oh, I felt even better about deadweighting the last one because they're like clearly just trying to get me dead beforehand, which is weird because it's like a blue-white deck, and blue-white is often kind of these grindier, slow, late-game engine type decks. But I guess we were in okay shape here. They play the Gem Guard here. They buff it up. And this is one of those situations where I was like, okay, having Ray of Ruin makes my deck drastically better in this situation. I mean, this turn's pretty simple. Just play the Vito's Inquisitor, pass back, and just know that as soon as I draw Ray of Ruin, I'll have an answer for the Gem Guard, and I have time to do that because Bedrock Tortoise is pretty sizable. Like, sure, they can bounce Bedrock Tortoise, but that is what it is, and then I can just replay it or whatever if I need to, if I don't draw Ray of Ruin mana. But I have a 3/3 that can block their 2/3 and their 1/2. I was pretty happy about this. I have the Myco Tyrant again looking kind of bad. So this was another situation where I was like, okay, these first 2 games I've drawn Myco Tyrant, it hasn't really done much. The Fanatical Offering, I haven't really had an opportunity to use it either. So these more niche cards, these cards that aren't just like generically do what they say they are. They're not Bedrock Tortoises. They're not just always 4 mana 6/6s. My opponent makes an interesting play here. They bounce their own River Herald Scout, which I guess is a line. It lets them buff up their gem guard again because it comes back in untapped. But it ends up being like really, really not ideal. They just buff their guy up to 6/6, and I think I just draw a land right here and just kill it. Like, I think that just, yeah, I just draw. I decided not to just play Primordial Gnawer here. Just didn't want to risk taking a big hit, getting tempoed out, because they have one card in hand that I know is a land. And here I don't need that land, so I just scry it to the bottom, and then I just attack them. And from here, the game just ends. Like, I don't think they make a big play this turn, and I think I just play, like, my Primordial Gnawer, and the game ends. Yeah, they play water. Actually, no, the game does continue. They play Waterwind Scout, and then they double explore onto it and make a 4/4 flyer. And I'm like, oh, do I actually have a legitimate shot of losing this game? Because that's kind of worrisome potentially. Just like, but yeah, I have so much power in play. I have like 9 power in play. Sure, they have some chump blockers. They hit me down to 15 or whatever it is, or 16, so that their Waterwind Scout is like a 4-turn clock. But like, I'm just playing so much power and toughness every turn. They have an Exile spell for my Bedrock Tortoise. It's actually an interesting spot on this next turn. I play the Myco Tyrant and hold up Fanatical Offering because I can't attack my vetoes anymore. I could have played Myco Tyrant and then Fanatical Offering on like my turn, but and like got an extra 1/1 out of it or whatever. But basically, the idea here is that they're going to go for their Exile effect. I'm going to get to sack my guy and like get to draw the 2 cards for free, essentially. So I go on a token, but I make their removal spell like not really do that much. And here I actually was feeling slightly worried, but because I did so much damage with them by attacking when I had the chance, I think I can outrace them. Because they're hitting me for 4, which is a 4-turn clock. I'm hitting them for 3, which is like a 3-turn clock. I have the Gnawer. I'm about to draw a bunch of cards. And overall, this game is like pretty straightforward. But yeah, it doesn't get that much more complicated. They just try to kill my thing. I sacrifice it. I'm starting to realize that if I had recorded each game individually, I might have realized there was a sound issue. The thing was I knew that the recording was working. I had checked that, and individually I had checked my microphone to make sure my microphone was working. But what had happened was my microphone for some reason had desynced from my recording, so it was like set to default, and the default apparently meant no microphone whatsoever because it just connected to nothing, and that was sad. But yeah, I sack my thing, draw a Join the Dead, which pretty much locks this up as long as they don't have a counter spell because they can't really race me anymore. I draw a Brontodon, but yeah, I decide I don't really want to mess around here. I just want to kill their guy. I don't have the ability to get anything back with Queensbay Paladin right now. Oh, no, I did. I don't think I did. I actually played my Primordial Gnawer here, I think. Ooh, what did I do? Gosh, what would I do now? I think I would just play Primordial Gnawer. It's tough. I have so much resources. I just don't want to get cheesed out, essentially. Oh, this is a tough choice. Oh, this was also before I remembered how Descend works, because I was like, oh, I'll get a 1/1 out of this. Yeah. But also just giving my guy Menace is pretty good. Punches for extra damage. And then I did play the Primordial Gnawer because I was like, okay, I basically threaten lethal here. My creatures are getting pretty big. And I thought the Myco Tyrant was going to be a 2/2 and make me a 1/1. It does not trigger, and I'm slightly confused. And then I remember, oh, yeah. The new Nicolai camera is covering the old Nicolai camera, but old Nicolai just said, oh, that's how that works. It's funny because future Nicolai is more analytical because he knows more about what's going on. Current Nicolai was frustrated that my opponent played a 6-drop and cascaded into a 5-drop that bought them back a 1-drop. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, could I actually lose this game? But then I was like, you know, I've got my Thrashing Brontodon. Brontodon can kill that thing. And I can like join the dead something else. This was like just like me attacking them, knowing that I couldn't really lose. I just attacked. They chump block or something. I think I killed a Chimeel. Yeah, sure. I could have like even just like joined the dead their 4/4, but it didn't matter. I wanted to just play Thrashing Brontodon, kill Chimeel. I cascade into a Poison Dart Frog, easy to play. Poison Dart Frog is so good. I play the Brontodon, I sack Brontodon, I get a bunch of fungi. I mean, this game is, as you can tell, pretty much over. I think they battle it out. They don't concede, but this game ends very quickly. I even got back my 4-drop. I forgot that it did damage to me. But yeah, this game just ends in short order. They had no other cards. Nice. So we are currently 1-1. I take another look at the deck, keep it the same, and move into the next round. Man, being able to fast... I mean, I oftentimes, when I am recording, I will, like, split it up between ones where I just, like, talk through all of my thoughts between the rounds. I actually did that a lot this one. I was really proud of this video. Like, I was, like, absurdly proud. Like, I would normally just be like, I'll scrap it. But I was so happy with how this draft went and how, like, the mid-round adjustments, especially, like, after the draft, where I was like, okay, I'm going to check back in on my deck between rounds and see how it does. And here again, I drew Fanatical Offering in an opening hand, and I was like, Fanatical Offering isn't really where I want to be. Like, in my opening hand. It's kind of niche. And I'm glad that I only had one copy in the deck, because it's really awkward if I have multiples. Here my opponent mulliganed to 5. And at this point, I was like, okay, I'm in really good shape. I'm going to be able to win this game, I think, as long as I don't take foolish damage in the early game. And they've already played an equipment, which I could probably keep them off of because I have my early like removal. I drew this swamp, so I now have access to double black for Join the Dead. They play Screaming Phantom, which is just like, oh, that's the perfect card for me to kill with dead weight. Just like easy peasy lemon squeezy. Play a Tarian's Journal. Tarian's Journal versus Tarian's Soul Cleaver. Who will win, I guess, is the ultimate question. They just have 3 cards in hand and I have 5 just because they mulliganed. Also, my Tarian's Journal is a lot better than their Tarian's Soul Cleaver, I think. This game actually is an interesting one, though, because there are decisions to be made, and I'm not sure I made them correctly. So I get to actually, like, watching back my own gameplay is actually very interesting, because I get to, like, kind of see what I maybe could have done differently. Because here I'm like, okay, I just want to play my 4-drop. I also want to kill their 5-4, but if they cascade into, like, a 3-drop, I'm kind of in behind, because I can't block it anyway, so I'm taking damage. So I ended up just playing the 3-3 because the idea is if I kill their 5-4 and they cascade into, let's just say, a 3-2, I don't actually mitigate that much damage. Whereas if I play the Inquisitor first and then I kill their thing next turn, then I can do that. And also it potentially opens me up to drawing a land and going like Fanatical Offering plus something. They Bitter Triumph, which kills my guy. So in terms of that, that wasn't the best for me. But now I'm at 10 and I'm like, okay, I could just play the Death Cap Marionette, and then if they try to kill it, I can sacrifice it. But at this point, it's like, okay, I don't want to take another hit for 5. You don't want to just, like, get cheesed out. When they have 2 cards in hand, you're like, okay, I can probably survive a Discover 3 here. And, yeah, they end up hitting a card that, like, looks at my hand, and I was, like, kind of sad about it. Because I was like, oh, my Queensbay Paladin. My Queensbay Paladin was going to be able to get back my 3-3. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. But as it is, I end up losing my guy. But it is nice for me, though, because trading a card is fine compared to, like, losing on the board. Because I'm going to get a 2-for-1 anyway, like, eventually, by getting Primordial Gnar or something like that. And so the fact that they didn't get to add to their board just made this game a lot easier for me. They play a Waterlogged Hulk, which doesn't add to the board as well. And at this point, like, I'm going to be able to win a late game against them anyway because of Tarian's Journal. But I just get to, like, play the Snail, play the Deathcap Mare. No, actually, no, I play Snail, I sack it to Fanatical Offering, get a token thing, and take one of their cards. They have 1 card in hand. And then I get to sacrifice the map token from Fanatical Offering to Tarian's Journal. It's just like unbelievable value. It's one of the reasons why I was so happy to have the Snail in the deck, because I'm happy to sacrifice it. Because it traded 1 for 1 already, and now I get to draw 2, draw a 3rd card with Tarian's Journal, and not hit any lands, but that just means I have like literally 5 spells. And this is the point where I think I audibly said, this is why I didn't want to take an extra 5 from the Zoetic Glyph God, because yeah, that's the only way you lose when you have 5 cards and they have 1, is like you're like at a low life total and they somehow get you with like a flipped Waterlogged Hulk or something. But here I was very confident in my chances of winning. I think this game doesn't last much longer. They just mill some cards and then I just like play a like Bedrock Tortoise. And the Thrashing Grothron meant that I wasn't even at risk from the Waterlogged Hulk or anything. Yeah, I think this game ends very soon after this. Let's just say this one wasn't off one of the... I mean, it was kind of close in the early turns, but, I mean, I just bash. Play Axejaw. It's also nice when you know that they can't target your stuff on your turn. Yeah. It's funny because during the recording, I was silent during this point, and now I'm kind of like, oh, what do I talk about here? But it's nice that I just get to kind of provide some play-by-play. Tithing Blade is interesting for me because I haven't seen it do much other than make the sacrifice. Like, I've seen it flip like once. Here, I think I played Primordial Gnar because it provides a second lethal attacker, which actually is like important because I hit them with Bedrock Tortoise. They go to 5. I actually make sure to attack first. I was proud of myself. I was like, okay, I'm playing it the proper way. And then I just play Primordial Gnar, and that gives me the flexibility to have 2 lethal threats, so that if they like kill one of my guys, I get to like make sure I can kill them if they have like a removal spell or like 1 blocker or whatever it is. And yeah, pretty successful game. They play a 1 blocker, as we said. I mean, it wouldn't have stopped them anyway, but I just swing for the win. I once again checked my deck between rounds. What did I learn? I felt pretty happy with my configuration, and I continued going forward. Another great opening hand. Myco Tyrant. Honestly, Poison Dart Frog really just showing one of the reasons it's super good here. It always trades for something because it gets death that's in the late game. This was actually a crazy game. This game is one that I'm really happy to look back on. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but Poison Dart Frog on turn 2 to compete with their Ixali's Lorekeeper. This is maybe the best I've ever seen Ixali's Lorekeeper. It's just like turn 2, ramp out a 3/3. I was like, okay. They reveal a Pathfinding Axe Draw as well, so I know what my future is. This Ixali's Lorekeeper just straight up Birds of Paradise. But here I play Skullcap Snail over the Myco Tyrant because I want to be able to... I can block, sacrifice it with Fanatical Offering because of my Poison Dart Frog, and that's just going to keep digging me towards more action. Maybe find me something to like deal with their cards. They play the Pathfinding Axe Draw. They draw a land, and I'm like, okay. I'm in okay shape here because I get to block, sacrifice. Again, Skullcap Snail, perfect card in my deck. Just really nice card to be an early game speed bump that gets me some value. Draw 2 cards. And because I have this Poison Dart Frog, I have so many options here. I just get to play the Primordial Gnar, and I'm just so happy. Like, Primordial Gnar, like, if they kill it, I might get a blocker. I could get, like, a Thrashing Brontodon. In red-green, it's not like they can, like, bounce to my hand. It's going to trade for something, and that just makes me really happy. I still have Myco Tyrant. Again, I still haven't done anything with the Myco Tyrant that's impressive. It's just Myco Tyrant just kind of hanging around. Here, I just immediately hit a Deadweight, and what I did here was I shrank the Pathfinding Axe Draw, because next turn, if I play Queensbay Paladin, then they'll have a 3/3 and a 2/1, and I'll be able to block it. So that was my plan. And I didn't mind playing the Queensbay Paladin for no value because I was going to be able to block it later. So here I actually just played the Swamp instead of the tap land because this way my Poison Dart Frog can trade with the Axe Draw and my Queensbay Paladin. Like, if they kill Queensbay Paladin, I can still block the Axe Draw and only take 4 instead of 6, which seems like a meaningful difference. This is actually really good for me here, that what happens on this turn. I actually remember this one now. They play Thrashing Brontodon, which, sure, it's like... It's still smaller than my Queensbay Paladin. And then they attack for 2. And I just... like they have the Thrashing Brontodon to kill my Deadweight, but I still block. Because this way Queensbay Paladin essentially trades for their 4/3 and their 3/4. I lose Deadweight and Queensbay Paladin. This is a fine trade for me. I still have Poison Dart Frog in play. And then this next turn actually features like one of my best plays of the draft, I think, on my next turn. So I have this Join the Dead that I could use. But I also have this Myco Tyrant, and I have a map token critically. And so what I do is I play the Myco Tyrant, and I have... oh my gosh. I'm realizing now that my great play that I was so proud of was actually a horrific punt. Oh my gosh. So basically, I thought I hadn't played a land yet. So on my second main phase, I'm like, okay, I can sack... but I did play the land. I played the Hidden Necropolis. But I thought, I was like, okay, if I sack this map token and I hit a land, then I can play a land and still hold up Join the Dead. If I hit a spell, I get to mill it. If a non-land spell, I get to hit mill it and get a fungus that will then be able to turn my Myco Tyrant into a 2/2, which will then let me block something with the Poison Dart Frog, trade with it, and my Myco Tyrant is a 3/3 because it'll have the counter on it from the map. But this was a horrific misplay. So I get to point it out instead of Twitch chat pointing it out. And I get to mill that guy, which is great because I have another chance to get back my Queen's guy. So the Myco Tyrant turns into a 3/3. So that play ended up really working out. It could have backfired if I'd drawn a land. Gosh darn it. I was so happy. I was like, yes, I get to show off my cool play. But no. Okay, so they play Tendril the Myco Tyrant, which has a 7-mana activated ability, which is really problematic for me. So here I'm like, okay, I really need to use my Join the Dead to kill that, but I don't need to do that now. I can wait. Here I block, and I also decide that I can trade the Myco Tyrant off because I have another chance. And another chance is going to get back my Queen's Bay, which is going to get back my lifelinker. And so I just want to be able to have so much extra value. I'm going to get back Queen's Bay, and I'm like, okay, and maybe Primordial Gnar for value. And what I do here, so as I just like, okay, I might be giving up on some tokens from Myco Tyrant, but this way I'll be at a higher life total, and I don't have to worry about like potentially dying out of nowhere from the Tendril. I can save my Join the Dead for the Tendril if I'm making these trades now. Make sure to get my Dart Frog Death Touch. Again, it's really close. I could have decided to just keep my Myco Tyrant in play, hoping to mill creatures off of another chance. Make more fungus. But then I'd be at 11. It gets a little bit dicier, potentially, because I might not be affecting the board that much next turn. Mephitic Draft, not a card that was performing really well for me in this draft. I'm not sure if... I think Mephitic Draft was good in my deck, but I didn't draw it in situations where it was the best. Definitely milling 2. So I would have gotten 2 more fungi out of that. I build Bedrock Tortoise, but honestly, this was a really key play as well. I'm still proud of this play. So I got the Skullcap Snail. They have 1 card in their hand. Skullcap Snail makes sure that their last card in hand, which isn't a land, or they would have played it to get closer with their Tendrils guy, it makes sure that they like don't get to have like a spell in their hand, which is important here because now it's like, okay, I get to play Skullcap. We're in a top deck situation. I'm going to kill their Tendril of the Myco Tyrant either next turn or the turn after. And the deciding factor on whether I play it like that is going to be, so they get to kill my guy, but they don't get to kill like a Queensway Paladin or something later. Basically, if they play a land here, I have to kill Tendril because otherwise I'm in huge trouble. As it stands, though, I get to play Queensway Paladin, buy back my card, and play Mephitic Draft. I actually play Mephitic Draft first, just in case I drew something, which is obviously the correct play, no downside to doing that, and I felt proud of myself again for just being like, okay, there's basically no world where you don't play Queen's Bay, but you might as well do it the right way. But yeah, I play that, get back my 3/3, and now I have a 3/3 lifelinker. This is also the moment where I realized, I think, at one point I realized that Queen's Bay Paladin, you pay life for it. But yeah, as they play their land there, I'm like, okay, I have to kill Tendril, and now I can start pressuring them. I can just attack them with like my lifelinker and my 5/4, and they can't possibly race me attacking back past my guy. And this is where I felt really, really confident. As I play my Thrashing Brontodon here, I'm like, okay, if they do try to kill Thrashing Brontodon, I can sack it to kill my own Mephitic Draft in response, and then draw an extra card off Mephitic Draft. So that's like a nice little piece of upside with the Thrashing Brontodon against removal spells here. They play a Yearling. I'm still in great shape. I have this cave. I always had a cave in play when I needed one because I have 3 copies, which I got for basically 0 cost. Here I just go for the Hidden Necropolis. I do this pre-combat because there's like cards that I could hit that would be relevant here. I hit a Vito's Inquisitor, which is pretty funny. And then I play the Deathcap Marionette pre-combat because if I mill my last Vito's Inquisitor, I might be able to get it into play off the Queen's Bay Paladin attack. So I think this was a correct play pre-combat. So that's pretty worth noting. I just attack, gain some life, keep back my 3/4 and my 3/3. I didn't really want to trade down. I didn't want to like trade my 3/4 for a 3/2 or whatever. But I just get to trade off my guys. And with the board empty like this and our life total is roughly equal, like it felt almost impossible for me to lose this game, barring like them drawing some crazy card this turn, and they just concede. Felt like a really good win. I felt really happy with how I played that one. Once again, checking my deck list, trying to decide if I should play River Herald's Guide, if I should play another Fanatical Offering. I decide not to. Wow, going back through these is actually really helpful and really enjoyable. Like, honestly, I was so proud of this draft that I felt devastated when I didn't have sound. I was like, oh my gosh, Nikolai, why? But now I get this cool opportunity to watch it back, really dive in deeper on some of the cool lines that were happening, realize that some of them were not correct. I think in retrospect, just holding up Join the Dead was probably better on that one turn with the Myco Tyrant, though it is close, because as you saw, it worked out really well that I did use the map token that way. It's just the following turn I can make the exact same play with the actual intent that I wanted. Here we get to see Poison Dart Frog really doing good work because it gets me that extra green mana I need for Thrashing Brontodon, because getting 1 forest and 1 swamp is a lot easier. They play Malcolm. I have Deadweight at the ready. That's huge because Malcolm can take over the game, and I get to just like play Deadweight and play a Thrashing Brontodon in the same turn. Just absolutely huge. I feel pretty good about this one. They play Twists and Turns. So Twists and Turns is the sort of card that makes you want to get to a lot of mana. And it makes Skullcap Snail a lot better. Because Skullcap Snail, normally if they like discard a land, it's like, oh, they probably didn't need it. But when they're trying to get to 7 mana to use Twists and Turns, this was something I was very aware of, was if they get to 7 mana, it makes it a lot harder to use my Deadweight. And so that was something I was keeping in mind. It is funny because I have the Poison Dart Frog, so if they hadn't explored, I would have been able to just block, which wasn't on my radar at all at the time, other than like after they attacked. I was like, oh, Poison Dart Frog has reach. But I was just pretty much committed to dead weighting this thing the whole time. I was double checking that it said chorus counters instead of just any counters. But they just play another 2-drop. I'm like, oh, they're getting some value. They're doing their thing. But I'm pretty okay with this. I just get to play my dead weight, play my Thrashing Brontodon. Poison Dart Frog once again doing huge work here. As you can see during the draft portion, getting one with 5 cards left in the pack was like absurd. But yeah, just kill the Malcolm. They have 4 cards in hand. I think they mulliganed this game. But I'm just like, okay, my new mission is to make sure they don't get to twists and turns. Let's just make sure we can end the game before that happens. Or use Thrashing Brontodon to take care of it if they are going to get close. They play another twist and turns, and so now I'm like, okay, if they do get to the late game, they can only really use 1 per turn, but still, my Thrashing Brontodon plan no longer really stops them, because if they get to 7 mana, they'll still have one of the 2. I would have to drop both Thrashing Brontodons, which just doesn't do much. They keep Merfolk Cave Diver on top. Slightly worrisome because it might mean they have like consistent explore from something, but overall it's more likely that they just didn't really have anything better to do. I was questioning the play because I thought that if I was them, I would have just explored literally as much as possible to try and find lands to flip the twists and turns. But here, just like, as you see, Poison Dart Frog, I got to spend like extra mana literally every single turn. I spent 4 mana on turn 3, 5 mana on turn 4. It's such a huge advantage. And they just like play a 2/4, and I'm just like, okay. I just get to start churning away. I think I just send in with the Primordial Gnar. This was like the best turn thing. Actually, was this the turn that I'm thinking of? I think I had a very good turn with Primordial Gnar at one point where I just flipped a really good card. Nope, this was not it. I guess we'll have to save that hype for later. It is funny because watching it back is like obviously a different experience for the viewer as well. So I'll be interested to hear what you think of this as well. I really wanted to share this one. I was devastated. I was like, obviously not like getting rid of Scampering Surveyor felt good because it stopped their ramp. I obviously was, and getting to sacrifice the snail always felt amazing. I was literally just like getting value out of it every single time. Just like absolutely awesome. But yeah, I was really sad when I was like, oh, I don't have audio on this. I still really want to show this draft. But yeah. Really cool stuff. And hopefully the extra insights I've been able to provide with hindsight have been pretty good. But yeah. Anyway, this game is pretty reasonable, I think, at this point for me. I'm in good shape. They have the 2 twists and turns. They have 4 lands. They make their attack with their Nautilus, and I'm like, okay, this is totally fine for me. I'm happy to trade a Thrashing Brontodon for this, because then I can like join the dead there Merfolk Cave Diver, or just play my other creature. Just like this trade is probably going to happen at some point anyway. And at least this way they spend their entire turn facilitating it. And if they do try to go for some combat trick, I have Join the Dead ready. I'm just like, yep. And like I have the Tarian's Journal that I can just like play all this stuff again later if I need to. I just end of turn another chance. Definitely milling the 2. And then I just get back a Skullcap Snail and a Primordial Gnar, I think. Because the thing was again, I didn't want them to get up to 7 mana, and so by playing the Skullcap Snail, it made sure that they never really got going on that department. Oh, took Brontodon. Yeah, that makes sense. I already have a 7 mana play. I just cold rip Queensbay Paladin, and just get back my 4 mana 3/3. Oh no, this was actually another key play. I was actually really happy with this one. Because the instinct is you draw the card, you're like, oh, this is a really good play, I'll do that. But what I decided was they have 1 card in hand, and if they are for some reason like holding a situational spell, they're just going to empty their hand because they now know that I have the snail. And so snail's only opportunity to be good is this turn, whereas Queensbay Paladin is going to be good every turn. And I'm not going to be ending the game in like 2 turns anyway. So it's not like Queensway Paladin ends me the game. Whereas let's just say they have like a 5-mana 5/5 in their hand. Them just like drawing a land, playing 5/5, I just get to completely avert that disaster scenario. And here I was like, oh, they have their like giant creature, but I still have Join at the Dead ready. So I'm in pretty good shape here. I could have like block sacked my Thrashing Brontodon to kill that thing, but I was like, okay, that's just not necessary. They have to get to 7 mana to flip that thing. I'm totally fine just joining the dead. I was like, I'm not going to take any chances here. Just join the dead. Like, I could have played this and tried to like chump block, but if they draw like an Explore card, I'm like under so much pressure then. There's no reason to wait. Just start the attacking going. They're in deep trouble. The tension element is very different when you're watching a replay, but I know there's game sounds because that was one of the things that confused me. I was like, why are there game sounds, but I can't hear myself? They play River Herald Scout, go to the bottom, and they put the Pathfinding Axe Jaw on top. I think this is one of the many times where you cast a Nurturing Bristleback and they concede. I actually had to decide whether to cast the Bristleback or the Queensway Paladin, and the tiebreaker was that like they both added like the same amount of power to play. Nurturing Bristleback was a 5/5 and a 3/3. Queensway was a 5/4 and a 3/3. But the Bristleback, I couldn't like double spell with it. Like if I drew a 3-drop on my following turn, I have 8 mana, so I could totally play both. And it's like the same amount of power. So I actually had to choose which one to do. And Bristleback, I think, is just straight up better. So I did that. And then they conceded because they can't beat a Bristleback. Boom. And I pop off. Of course, I go, yes! So you get to like see what that was like. Oh, man. I keep the deck configuration the same. At this point, my record is... How many wins do I have? I have no idea. Who cares? Yeah, we'll figure it out. I have a decent number of wins, let's just say. Easy keep, though. On the draw. 2-drop, 3-drop. I think I was saying that, yeah. Like, this hand has just got it all. 2-drop, 3-drop. It's really hard to go wrong when you have like a turn 3 Thrashing Brontodon. I think I was talking about how I could play Thrashing Brontodon, and then if they did have an artifact, I could play Myco Tyrant and sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon on turn 4 or something. Myco Tyrant's a really interesting card. I think pack one, pick one might not be powerful enough to be worth taking because it does force you to play black green pretty much. But it was like, I mean, so far it's done nothing, very little for me. So it's kind of an interesting one. Like I was considering cutting it at various points in this draft. This was unpleasant. I felt very sad. Diamond Pickaxe cannot be killed by Thrashing Brontodon. And they played turn 2 Captain Storm, which every time they play an artifact grows their guy. And I did not have a dead weight. And honestly, this is just like I exile a card from their hand, get rid of like a random mountain, they equip their pickaxe, attack, grow their guy. Just absolute nightmare scenario. If I was on the play, I would have had a chance to set up a block there because my Brontodon would have been in play. As such, they used the mana from the treasure to play a Staunch Crewmate, and I'm like, oh, they definitely have another artifact or another pirate because they're pausing. Oh my gosh. Just careening minecart, which can also like make treasures to buff stuff, including itself with the Storm. I just have no way of killing Storm. I'm like a turn behind because I was on the draw, and just like this was nightmarish. Not nightmarish, obviously. I mean, my opponent just had a good draw on the play. They just basically spent like the equivalent of like every single mana they could possibly have every single turn from their Diamond Pickaxe. Just they're basically like sequencing out a Storm combo with like how much damage they can do to me. It's also funny because Captain Storm can target other things, so it's like they can put counters onto other creatures that matter. They just go like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going along. I can't block it. I decided not to chump block because maybe like I can threaten like some double block later. Then they miss a land drop, so I'm like, oh gosh, they have all spells in hand. And they have a treasure, and they're gonna get even more treasure next turn. I just like am deploying as much power as I can to the board every turn. I've literally gone 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and this game is not even remotely close. They can't even kill my Brontodon because they're missing a land drop. They go to combat they forget to crew their minecart, maybe. I don't even know. But as it is, I just have to trade here because I can't go to 2 life. I draw the dead weight, adding insult to injury. Play my 5/2. It's funny because, like, in some worlds, I could, like, technically, like, double block Captain Storm here, but it's, like, never happening because they just, even in that world, they would just equip, like, crew the minecart. They play Wanderglyph, which lets them use minecart. Wanderglyph is also an artifact. They discarded a land, so they, like, had drawn a land. Play Spyglass Siren, and at this point, the game is just over because they have, like, a giant flyer that they can buff, and I can never block Captain Storm. And, like, I'm basically just dead on board. So here they buff up the the storm, and then they just buff up the 3/3. And now that the 3/3's there, and I cannot kill the Captain Storm, it's like it's unfortunate because I was actually kind of close to maybe getting back into it, which is kind of crazy. Like, because I have this Death Touch creature that I hit, which can block Captain Storm, but the problem is I can't kill the Siren, and the Siren can just wear the treasure map thing. It can, like, wear the. They can put the diamond pickaxe onto the Siren, and then Siren can attack me. And that makes it 6 power, which is just lethal. So, yeah, I don't draw anything that helps, and they attack me and win. I tried to, like, find a sequence of plays that could work, but literally, I guess it is worth talking about. I put the deadweight on the Spyglass Siren, had the Marionette, and then I had cycled my Nurturing guy, so this would become a 3/3 because this is a fungus. So I could, like, technically, like, block here, but it doesn't matter there. I'm still dead on board if they find the line. I'm just, like, putting pickaxe on, like, their flyer anyway. Nautilus is a lethal threat. They just attack all and I die. But I did try to find a line. I tried to find a line that made it at least somewhat complicated for them, and it didn't matter at all. Like, they had a combat trick anyway. Yeah, but, like, they just have to remember their Nautilus has an ability. I only have 2 blockers. But yeah, gotta make them play it out. They just Ancestors hate me, and I die. Yeah, Lannery's Captain Storm on the play is really, really good. That's what I learned there. Okay, next round. This is a bounce back round. I think I'm 4-2 at this point. I was like, okay, let's go. This is on the draw. Pretty easy keep, I think. I have a 2-drop and a 3-drop. I've got a Fanatical Offering if I really need to try and draw some extra stuff. Feeling pretty good about this one. And this game was actually, like, weird. I was like, they play turn 1 Seeker of Sunlight. I'm feeling real good about this. Hit me for 1. Turn 2, Seeker of Sunlight. Okay. Seeker of Sunlight. And this is, like, the classic where you're like, oh, maybe this card is better than I thought it was. And there's another interesting spot. If I play Echo of Dusk here, I can, like, block Seeker of Sunlight. But I was like, okay, if I play Poison Dart Frog, I can cast Pathfinding Axe Draw next turn. And that could be even better for me. And then my opponent makes the inexplicable play of exploring, and then they don't attack with their 1/1s, as if they didn't want to trade with my Poison Dart Frog or something. Which is just odd. Like, I'm never blocking them in a million years, obviously. Here again, I was like, okay, I could, like, deadweight the 2/2, but I don't think they're going to explore with it again. And if they do, I can still just trade it with my guy. I ditched that card because I want to try and draw a land to play my Primordial Gnawer. And here is a weird play as well. My opponent, they play Child of the Volcano, and then they send in with a 1/1. Which is weird because if they wanted me to block so that their thing would grow, then they should have just attacked first because I would just almost certainly block. But as it was, they maybe didn't want me to block, so it's like a weird mind game. And so now I'm like, okay, these are cards. My opponent has 3 Seeker of Sunlights, which I basically never have seen in play. They have a Child of the Volcano, which I don't really want to grow, but it's probably inevitable that it will grow. I kill their Seeker of Sunlight that's a 2/2 now, so I don't have to trade with it later and make the Child of the Volcano bigger. But I'm kind of scared of the Child of the Volcano because with Seeker of Sunlight, they can keep growing it every turn, and I don't really have removal for it if it gets, like, past a 5/5. So I'm like, okay, I kind of want to like turn the corner and start attacking them. And they find another Seeker of Sunlight, which is hilarious. I'm like, they have 4 copies of this card. But Child of the Volcano grows into a 4/4, which was worrisome. I was like, okay. This is like the first red-green deck I've seen that hasn't played a single... I guess they played the... No, they haven't played a single Dino. But I'm just like, okay, I want to apply some pressure to them. I get to hit them very hard. And, yeah, I'm just like, okay, we're going to attack you for 7. Because this way, I get to play my Primordial Gnar. Even if they do kill it, I take 7 and I'm at 9. I'm still not in one-shot range. And I'm just like, hoping for the best. I'm like, okay, if I can trade this with a Child of the Volcano, I'll be very happy. But yeah. Basically, I'm feeling like I'm in good shape here because I'm winning the race now. I've got some pretty solid cards in hand. And Echo of Dusk, importantly, is going to be able to gain me some life. They explore into Daring Discovery, which absolutely terrifies me and makes me like really happy that they get rid of it. They just explore twice, looking for a land. They find it. And this might be one of the single best turns I've ever had. And I don't think I can claim really any of the credit. I make my attack. I prepare. I decided not to attack with Poison Dart Frog because I don't really want to have to spend the mana on it. But I attack with everything else. I figure they might block being afraid of a pump spell or something like that. Mill a land with my Screaming Phantom. They just go block, block, take 2. And this is where Primordial Gnar really earns its bacon. I just flip the Myco Tyrant after having milled a land and having 2 of my creatures die. And all of a sudden the game is just over. Just like my guy's a lifelinker. My Veto guy has endless tokens to sacrifice, and I just made like a 4/4 that made 3 1/1s for 3 mana. I was like, oh, all of those like horrible games I've had with the Myco Tyrant before. Okay, I understand now. This next turn is actually another really interesting one, because I have to decide what I want to do in order to try and end this game as consistently as possible. Basically, I want to keep the pressure on, and this card is a really interesting one to draw because I basically want to be able to attack with the Myco Tyrant this turn past their 5/4, and I want to be able to attack with my Veto's Inquisitor, so I want to sacrifice something. But I don't want to sacrifice one of the tokens, because if I sacrifice the token, then I can't attack with my Myco Tyrant. So now I'm like, what do I sacrifice? And it's like, okay, I almost sacked the token, but then I'm like, well, then I can't attack for 4, and I really want to be able to attack for 4. I could have like tapped Poison Dart Frog and then sacked the Poison Dart Frog. That might have been the best play of all. But then my Queensway Paladin still doesn't have a creature to get back. Except I guess it could have gotten back Echo of Dusk if I attacked with it. I'm realizing now that that would have been a better play. I tapped Poison Dart Frog, sacrifice Poison Dart Frog, attack with everything, and then if they do block, I get to get back my guy with my Queensway Paladin anyway. But anyway, I attack with everything. My guy has Menace. They make this trade. And they take 7, 8, 9. They actually had to block something there because otherwise I could have sacrificed 2 more creatures to my Veto's Inquisitor. Play Queensway Paladin. Get back the Veto's Inquisitor because now I have another Menace creature. This was when I realized that I know that I realized at one point that it cost me life, and I was like, oh, I'm glad I wasn't at 4 life. But yeah, got the win there. Pretty nice. We're 5-2 at this point, I think. Beautiful. Being able to skip that is really nice. I mean, I think I looked at my deck again, which is why there was some time spent there. And I was talking post-op on the game, some of the stuff that I was able to talk about now. Another pretty reasonable hand. Another interesting one, though, where you get to see... This is actually my favorite game of the entire draft, so I'm really happy to be able to live this one again. But you can see my entire hand is just these kind of situational spells. I've got the Journal, I've got the Fanatical Offering, the Poison Dart Frog really doing a lot of work here. And there's a Restless Anchorage there, which kind of worries me. I'm like, okay, Dart Frog has reach, so that can deal with the Restless Anchorage. Poison Dart Frog on turn 2, really exactly where I want to be. My opponent actually, though, has Out of Air. The first time I've seen this cast on turn 2, actually really kind of frustrates me. Not like frustrates me like psychologically, but it frustrates my plans. Foils me in my tracks, which is unfortunate. But they don't follow it up with any pressure. They just cycle a Runaway Boulder, And I just get to like, okay, I'll just play my Myco Tyrant. And I'm just like, okay, I'm cruising along. I get to just play this. Maybe I'll just like find some synergies with it and set things up for later. Yeah, they don't have any pressure in play. I was looking at this Tarian's Journal, like, man, if all of my hand was permanents, I could like play Tarian's Journal, flip it immediately and like discard my entire hand and like get 4 fungi and make a 5/5 Myco Tyrant. But obviously, I've drawn all of my niche, like Fanatical Offerings and Other Chance. That's what I'm talking about while I'm highlighting these cards. I vividly remember discussing this because it was such a cool like idea to me. I was like, oh, I can use this Tarian's Journal for some cool stuff. They play a Lurker Bat. They hold up some mana. I'm just gonna just play into whatever they have. If they counter this, I at least get a Descend trigger because I'll have a permanent going to the graveyard. I wasn't sure what they had, but I was like, okay, this is like okay for me. I'm definitely not trying to trade. I could have played Screaming Phantom, but I just wanted to use my mana properly because if I draw a land, I can play Journal plus Screaming Phantom, which is just way better for me. And yeah, sometimes oftentimes it's better to just use all of your mana because it just gives you some good situations that you could find. But I was like, okay, my life total's high. I've got all this value. I've got my Myco Tyrant, hoping for some stuff. And that last game that we played, I think, was the first time the Myco Tyrant really did anything, was where it like made 3 tokens. Like the Myco Tyrant had some like okay games, but like that was like the best one where it was like, okay, the Myco Tyrant really did some stuff there. Which is again why it's like, okay, even if you put a couple of cards in your deck like Screaming Phantom and stuff, it's still not doing a ton all the time. And this turn I do play the Screaming Phantom because yeah, I just wanted to draw the land. They counter it with Hurl into History, and I was like, oh, that's not even that bad for me because it's like I get to get the Descend trigger. And they get a Swashbuckler's Whip, which again I've never seen in play. Lucky me. But I get the Descend trigger, which is pretty nice. Getting that extra power on the Myco Tyrant is no joke. As well as a sacrifice thing for the Veto's Inquisitor. Here they go into the tank a little bit. They have probably got some options. Hurl into History was honestly like, it didn't have anything that devastating for them to hit. I've got a couple creatures in the graveyard. Got the Tarian's Journal. I was like, okay, the Tarian's Journal can win me the late game. I just have to survive. I'm not really afraid of the activated ability on the whip, like the 8 mana thing. I'm just like, well, I've got my Join the Dead to kill any problematic creatures. I was also wondering if I should have like tried to play around Hurl into History, but then I was like, yeah, I have all these spells, but I can't really use them that effectively. They tapped down my Veto's Inquisitor with the Waylaying Pirates, so it was kind of nice for them. They hit the Swashbuckler's Whip. But I'm just like, okay, here we go. They're all tapped out. And here I was like, okay, I can do the same line that I did before in a previous game with like Fanatical Offering, sacrifice something, Tarian's Journal, sacrifice the map token. And I was debating whether or not to sacrifice like the Inquisitor so I could get another fungi, but that just seemed like terrible. So I decided not to do that. I was just like, yep. And I was kind of worried about their like land, their Restless Anchorage that could like become a flyer. So I was like trying to save the Join the Dead to some degree. I also just was trying to draw a swamp because I felt kind of like bucketed in to not being able to cast my Join the Dead along with another spell. But Echo of Dusk gave me a lot of hope. A 2-mana 3/3 lifelinker is like absolutely fantastic, and Echo of Hope is a really, really good card, I think. Like if you can like somewhat consistently enable it. Like the card looks like a throwaway, like it looks like a random 2/2 with not that much upside. Yeah, like I almost sacrificed the 3/3, which would have been just like heinously bad. But like always good to consider your options. Good job, Nikolai. Making the right choice. I highlighted it. Oh no. I came very close. I like almost clicked it. Oh my gosh. The 3/3 untaps next turn, Nikolai. The fungus is worse than the Veto's Inquisitor. I think I was like trying to like enable Descend for Echo of Dusk or something. And I was like, okay, I'll get another 1/1. But yeah, obviously keeping my 3/3 in play is better. I'm just like, okay. They play Runaway Boulder. I was like, okay, they'll kill my 3/3. I'm glad that I did it this way. Just feeling pretty good. Still at a high life total. They hit me to 14, but I've got my Echo of Dusk almost on lock. Just hoping for the best here. I play Echo of Dusk. because I just really want to get an attack, start attacking with it, gaining back some life. Honestly, I wish I had more of those cards. It's so good. And then I realized I have enough creatures in my graveyard that I can just kind of go for this another chance. I don't really have to like join the dead anything. And yeah, mill 2 cards, hit 2 permanents, grab my Poison Dart Frog as a reach creature and my Screaming Phantom as another flyer. Keep a vampire in my graveyard in case I draw the Queen's Bay. And Fueling Myco Tyrant is no joke either. As well as my Tarian's Journal, which can just sacrifice those fungi. It was funny, though, because my Echo of Dusk briefly was turned on by milling 2 permanents, and then I immediately turned it off again by getting rid of my Descend by bringing creatures back. Here they attack me. I was kind of curious why they weren't, like, firing up their flyer. I was like, okay, what do they... Their flyer land, like, what do they have? But I was like, what could they have that's problematic for me here? They play Council of Echoes as a big flyer, and I'm like, okay, I'm so glad I have this Join the Dead. That's going to make things way easier for me. And now I'm like, okay, I just want to start gaining back life. What can I do to get a creature in my graveyard? And I eventually decided that cycling the Bristleback is like my best line. I was like, okay, I want to play the Dart Frog, but I also just want to make sure that I can gain 3 life here. Because like they can hit me for 3 in the air next turn. And if they can get rid of some blockers, maybe they can hit me for 3 on the ground. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to cycle this. It's not going to matter. I'll just get a land. It's going to be okay. I have this journal that I can just like cast my cards again. And so this will be fine. I now have the life gain. I'm getting a Descend trigger, so I'll get another guy. I have a reach creature now. All is well. And then I get to sacrifice one of my 1/1s as well to just get some extra value. The Tarian's Journal plays really well with like the Myco Tyrant once the Myco Tyrant is rolling. Like once you have a bunch of tokens, there's plenty to use them on. I just keep my guys. Life totals are fairly even. They have a Dig Site Conservator, and I'm like, oh, that's really bad for me. They just get to like take out my Descend and make my Tarian's Journal flipping a lot worse. But it's like, it was weird. I don't think they fully understand how the cards work. You can only sacrifice it at sorcery speed, but I don't think they realized that. So they just passed the turn without doing it. They also didn't activate their flying land, which was pretty good for me because they're trying to hold up the Conservator. And this is where I realized one of the coolest plays I could possibly pull off. I realized that unlike in the early turns where it was all like spells in my hand, I have a bunch of lands, like to the point where it's like I can't use all these lands. I can only play 1 land a turn. And I still have this Myco Tyrant, and I have this Tarian Journal, which lets me just dump all of my lands into my graveyard. At this point, I was like, oh gosh, did I really screw this up? Did I just get rid of my Myco Tyrant? Myco Tyrant even has Trample, which I didn't realize. But it tramples over for 2 against them. They don't get to exile my graveyard. They just discover 4, hit a Waylaying Pirates to tap down my Poison Dart Frog. And I was like, oh, well, I'm at 12. I just gained 3 more, which is great. They've tapped my guy, so I can't like block their flyer. So this is my chance to just like put the game away because they have 1 card in hand. They can only deal like 9 damage to me. There's not really combat tricks in blue-white that can like push through this last few. And so I'm just like, I can get 5 more fungi here. And then I was like, wait, I could just play Screaming Phantom and then get 4 fungi, which is definitely better. But they're at like 6, so every fungi counts. So I'm like, okay, I'll play my Screaming Phantom, and then I'll dump my entire hand to this Tarian's Journal. And I actually have like 1 or 2 creatures in the graveyard, but like my entire hand is land. It's like very useless to me. But like 4 1/1s is a huge game here. I was like debating whether or not to play a cave first, but I think the 4 1/1s matter a lot more because I'm just trying to kill them on my next turn. And I'm getting 4 1/1s. So I now have 6 1/1s in addition to the creatures I already have. And my Myco Tyrant is a 7/7 trample. So I'm like, okay, I just have to hold the fort here. They have a Ruin Lurker Bat that I could block with my 2/2. They have this Restless Anchorage, and then they fire it up. I'm like, oh no. Oh no. What's going to happen here? They're attacking with everything. They have like +1/+1 for their team. Is there some sort of like kill spell? They petrify my guy, and I'm like, okay, we've got there. They can't possibly kill me now. They have no cards in hand. They just like wanted to show how close they were. They were like 3 points of damage off. Which, honestly, that extra life from the Echo of Dusk, incredibly clutch. Like winning me the game here. And then they concede because I have like infinite power on board. I'm so happy. It's it's hard for me to react after the fact with the exact level of happiness, but like this was like such a satisfying win. It's like, my gosh, the line that I saw on like turn 3 where I like discard my entire hand to Myco Tyrant came to fruition in such a satisfying way that it's like, oh my gosh, we did it. It was fantastic. And now we have the trophy match. As you can see, it does not take very long. Classic Bolas versus Quintorius battle. We have a fantastic hand. We're on the play. We have turn 2 Poison Dart Frog, turn 3 Vito's Inquisitor, turn 4 like Brontodon plus something. It's just great. And they have a turn 1 Cenote Scout. And I'm like, oh gosh. Turn 1 2/2 playing red green aggro. But luckily I'm on the play. I've got all the advantages I need. They also have these cool lands that I'd never seen before that are like Jurassic Park themed, which I definitely highlighted over. I'm like, oh, this is Jurassic Park themed. Nice. I'm like, okay. They're playing their cards. I'm playing my cards. My 3/3 blocks their 2/2. And this is where I was like, oh no, I played too quickly. I should have played Thrashing Brontodon here, and I still believe that I should have played Thrashing Brontodon. Because one of the cards they could have here very easily is Abrade, and they just Abrade my Inquisitor, and then I'm like behind on tempo. Whereas if I play Brontodon, it doesn't matter. And they just concede. I still freak out. I'm like, yes! Woohoo! They can't beat the Vita the Inquisitor. I was like beating myself. I had literally just started to be like, man, you get to the final round, Nikolai, and this is what you do. You just don't even think, you just play. You could have played better. And then they just turned. Nobody can beat the Inquisition. But yeah, really awesome draft. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I really wanted to share it with you because, as you could see, there were some awesome moments. And I know it's not the same, but hopefully this at least provided some cool analysis. You got to see some extra thought process, and I got to think things through even a second time and talk about my plays in even more depth. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and made it all the way till the end, leave hashtag replay in the comment section down below because this was a really awesome replay. Also, the original hashtag that I had for this one was hashtag amazing. So you could leave hashtag amazing, hashtag replay, hashtag amazing replay, any of those combinations, because I felt amazing after this draft. I felt really, really proud of myself, really happy with how I drafted, how I played, how I constantly tweaked the deck, because I built the deck in the first one iteration I don't think was the best iteration. I think cutting those three ones, those merfolk, was really important to the overall success of the deck. And I think that making sure that I just had like one top end card like the Big Dino, the Myco Tyrant being enabled. I'm glad I got to do some cool stuff with the Myco Tyrant too. That was like really, really fun. And just performing a post-op on the deck, like having enough vampires to make sure my Queen's Bay Paladin was really good. Having a really good rare like Bedrock Tortoise, the Pathfinding Axtra, just really solid 4-drops. One of the things I liked about this deck that I'm talking about here in this retrospective is that I got past the Queen's Bay Paladin, which felt really good because I was optimizing it when somebody else had like given up the shot at optimizing it. I'm also talking about how I like Pathfinding Axtra more than the River Herald guy, just because I think a 4/3 is just so much bigger than potentially a 3/1. But yeah, Brontodon's fantastic, Join the Dead's fantastic, Screaming Phantom, bringing that in as a way to enable my graveyard synergies for Myco Tyrant a little bit better. Felt pretty good about that. But yeah, back to the Queen's Bay Paladin point, it felt really cool to like go for the Queen's Bay Paladin when the person, I was like third pick, so 2 people had a chance to try it, and I ended up making it a great card in my deck. Myco Tyrant, not a card I think is maybe worth like really first picking and trying to go hard on, because I mean I had a pretty good black-green deck for it, and like it's hard to use. But as you could see, very powerful if you can enable it. So I'd say you need to have ways to mill yourself and not have to just rely on trading to get that card going. Snail was fantastic. I loved the Snail in this deck. That was like a hidden all-star. The fact that I was buying it back with another chance was really cool. Another chance I think was way better than Fanatical Offering would have been as well, which is something I was talking about here as well. Just like another chance getting back 2 threats. I don't know if I'd ever want more than one another chance, because it can get finicky in multiples in the opening hand. But again, I don't think I'd ever really necessarily want more than one Fanatical Offering either. They're both kind of finicky in different ways, and so I think having a blend of finicky cards is sometimes best, because then when you draw them both, you have options. Poison Dart Frog, fantastic. Tarian's Journal, fantastic. And again, as I said at the beginning of this video, the thing about Tarian's Journal is it gives you some inevitability for the matchups where you really need that. There are situations where you play against like a grindy deck as well, and you're like, okay, I need to be assured that if we're both grinding, I have a way to go over the top. And that is like one of the ways to be like confident in your end game compared to someone else's. Yeah. Overall, really fun draft. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed watching this. And yeah, Mephitic draft, not necessarily the card that it didn't actually do anything too crazy. I don't know if I ever sacrificed it, but I think it was still good because I had like enough ways to sacrifice it that it was like a reasonable chance of being a 2-mana draw too, and like potentially putting a counter on my Inquisitor or something like that, which could have been relevant. But yeah. Also the caves, like the caves, always having a cave when I needed one was like definitely something pretty worthwhile, I think. But yeah, Echo of Dusk was fantastic. Just the life gain, like not single handedly, but like I gained like 6 life off of that one game, which was absolutely clutch. And yeah, Queens by Paladin. I'm just highlighting my favorite cards from this one. And this is where I talk about the Queens by Paladin point that I already made about how I picked a third, optimized it, and it felt really good. And yeah. That's going to do it for this video, though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe for more. Comment if you enjoyed this kind of retroactive. I'm really glad I got to share this draft with you. I was like, I could just spend some extra time and basically go through it, review, and learn some stuff myself, share some extra stuff with you. And yeah, as you can see, Deadweight was fantastic as well. If I'd drawn Deadweight, I would have won that game against Red Blue, I think. But yeah, if I'd drawn it in my opening hand. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. If you want to support my content, you can do so via Patreon, patreon.com/NicolaiBolas. It's like if you want to tip the channel because you've been enjoying it, but then you also get some extra stuff. So it's like if you tipped your waiter and he brought you a free piece of pie, is the way I've been thinking about it. Where it's like I have a tier list over there and there's other cool rewards like being able to do drafts with me or things like that at higher tiers. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. But that's going to do it. And I'll talk to you next time.